Black woman pulled over by racist cop. He freezes when she hands him her judge's ID. The flashing blue lights in her rearview mirror weren't what caught Maya Ellison off guard. It was the tone in the officer's voice. "Step out of the vehicle, now!" he barked, hand already near his holster. Maya took a slow breath and looked up at the young cop stomping toward her car. Officer Trent Callahan. His name tag was crooked, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning her like she didn't belong on this road, in this neighborhood, in this town. She knew this moment was coming. Just not so soon. Not here. And definitely not like this. "Is there a reason I'm being stopped, officer?" Maya asked calmly, rolling her window down halfway. Trent sneered. "You were swerving. License and registration." Maya handed him both without a word. Her hands didn't shake. They never did. He barely looked at the documents before tossing a glance into her back seat, as if expecting contraband or an unregistered child. His eyes darted back to hers with a smug tilt of his head. "Step out," he repeated. She sighed and obeyed. She wasn't wearing anything flashy, just dark jeans, a gray sweater, and sneakers. Her curls were tucked into a low bun, her makeup minimal. She looked like someone's aunt coming back from grocery shopping. That was intentional. She stood with both hands visible. He circled her like she was a suspect in a robbery. "You from around here?" he asked, voice sharp. "Passing through." He took a step closer. "You driving this car legally, Miss Ellison?" She raised an eyebrow. "You already have my license and registration. I asked you a question, and I answered it." That flicker in his eyes, anger maybe, or insecurity. He wasn't used to being spoken to like that by women like her, not in his town, not in his uniform. Then, just as backup lights appeared from a second patrol car, pulling up behind them, he made a move she didn't expect. "Turn around. Hands on the hood." She stared at him. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Step to the front of the car and place your hands on the hood. You're detaining me. Until I can verify some things. Your plates are from DC, and this vehicle doesn't match a local profile." Maya's voice stayed even. "I don't need a local profile to drive through Georgia." His jaw clenched. "You think you're smart." She slowly reached into her back pocket. "Don't you dare," Trent snapped, stepping forward. She froze. "I'm retrieving a card from my back pocket. Slowly, with one hand. You're welcome to reach for it yourself." His face was flushed, eyes wide. For a second he thought he had her under control. Then he saw the gold badge she pulled out. District Court of the District of Columbia. Federal Judge. The seal shone in the cruiser's lights. She held it in front of his face like a mirror. Silence. Trent blinked. Once. Twice. He looked at the badge, then at her, then back again. The color drained from his face. The second officer, who had just stepped out of his car, froze mid-step. "Trent, what the hell is going on?" Maya finally spoke, her voice like cold iron. "I was hoping to get through this county without being reminded why I left the South." Trent opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. She slipped the badge back into her pocket. "You just profiled and attempted to arrest a federal judge, Officer Callahan. That's not going to look good in your report." The second officer, older and more alert, quickly stepped in. "Ma'am, I apologize. We didn't know who you were." "That's the problem," she said. She didn't wait for permission. She walked back to her car, sat down, and drove off. Calmly, controlled, just like her mother taught her. But as the tires hummed against the road again, her fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Because this wasn't just another racist cop on a power trip. This was something she'd seen before, something deeper. She had her suspicions the moment she crossed into Fulton County. But now it wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was a spark. Her trip had just changed course. This wasn't going to be a quiet drive. This was going to be a reckoning. And Officer Trent Callahan had just handed her the first piece of a puzzle she didn't even know she'd been assembling. She reached for her phone, voice low. "Devin," she said once the line connected. A male voice on the other end answered, confused. "Judge Ellison, are you okay? Tell the task force we've got a live one. I want everything on Fulton County PD, especially the officers on patrol today. Start with Callahan." "You sure? I'm done waiting for the system to fix itself." She hung up and exhaled slowly. Somewhere behind her, Officer Callahan was probably still frozen, trying to figure out how badly he'd just messed up. But Maya Ellison wasn't thinking about that anymore. She was thinking about what came next, about who else was out there, about how many other drivers didn't have a badge to stop injustice with. And for them, this wouldn't end with a badge flash. It had to go further. She wasn't just going to make a statement. She was going to make history. Maya pulled into a small gas station just outside the city limits, the neon sign above the store flickering weakly against the darkening Georgia sky. She needed a moment to think, to plan, to cool the fire that had ignited in her gut the moment Officer Callahan reached for his cuffs. She turned off the engine, sat in silence, and stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at her was calm, composed, but there was something deeper now, an edge in her eyes, a storm brewing. She reached into the glove compartment and retrieved a slim leather folder. Inside, a list. Names, dates, case files. Fulton County had been on her radar for months. She hadn't intended to act on it during this visit, but after what just happened, she knew she couldn't let it go. Her phone buzzed. It was Devin. "Judge Ellison," he said quickly. "I pulled what I could in the last hour. You were right. Officer Trent Callahan has a record." "I figured. Go on." 4 civilian complaints in 2 years, all minorities, all brushed under internal review. Let me guess. Each one labeled insufficient evidence. "Exactly." Maya shut her eyes, jaw tightening. "There's more," Devin continued. "Fulton PD recently received a federal grant meant to improve community policing. Callahan's precinct got the bulk of it." "Of course they did," Maya murmured. "And what do they have to show for it? More stops, more aggression, more cover-ups." Devin paused. "Do you want me to notify the circuit office?" "No, not yet. This stays between us for now. If I push too hard too early, they'll close ranks. I want evidence they can't deny." She ended the call and got out of the car, locking it behind her. As she walked toward the store, a group of teens loitered near the vending machines, their laughter halting as she passed. A tall boy in a hoodie nodded at her, cautious. "Evening, ma'am." "Evening," Maya said gently, offering a slight smile. Inside, she grabbed a bottle of water and headed to the counter. The cashier, a tired woman in her late 30s, with a southern drawl and smudged eyeliner, looked up with a warm smile. "You passing through or lost?" "Neither," Maya replied. "I used to live around here." The woman raised an eyebrow. "No kidding, you look like someone who got out." "I did," Maya said, "but sometimes the past finds you anyway." The cashier chuckled. "Ain't that the truth?" As Maya paid, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into the parking lot. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Another deputy, different badge. The door chimed. A burly man in his 40s stepped in, eyes immediately locking onto Maya. He smiled, too wide. "Evening, miss," he said, voice too friendly. "Mind if I ask where you're headed?" Maya turned toward him calmly. "Do I need to answer that?" He laughed awkwardly. "Just making conversation. Folks round here like to know who's coming through." "I imagine they do." He tilted his head. "You look familiar. Have we met?" Doubt it? The tension crackled. The cashier looked uncomfortable. You sure? You ever work in law? The deputy pressed. Maya's lips twitched. Not in a way that would interest you, but I've read your department's performance reports. Fascinating stuff. He didn't like that. You have a good night, ma'am, he said tightly, backing off. He tipped his hat, but his smile was gone. Maya nodded and walked past him. As she exited the store, the deputy watched her closely, then turned to the cashier. She give you any trouble? The woman frowned. She paid cash and said thank you. That's about as threatening as it got. Maya heard the whole thing. Outside, she leaned against her car for a moment, thinking. That was 2 encounters in 2 hours, both tinged with suspicion. Both men rattled by her calm. They sensed something about her, but they didn't know what. Yet. And that's how she wanted it. She needed time. Time to gather what she needed before her identity made headlines. Time to dig deep, to uncover what the justice system was trying to hide beneath piles of paperwork and a culture of silence. Because Maya hadn't just come to Georgia for personal closure. She was here to deliver a message. She opened her trunk and retrieved a plain black duffel bag. Inside were case files, a laptop, and an encrypted phone that connected her to a federal task force back in D.C. She would keep moving. Tonight, she'd stay at a cheap motel outside of Griffin, far enough from the city to avoid attention, close enough to start pulling threads in the morning. She climbed back into the driver's seat, started the car, and looked out into the darkness ahead. This wasn't just her story anymore. This was a case now, and she was the judge. The next morning, Maya stood in front of a run-down community center in the heart of South Fulton. She had swapped her sleek black dress and heels for jeans, sneakers, and a soft brown leather jacket. Her hair was tied up in a loose bun, and dark sunglasses shielded her eyes. She looked like any other woman in town, intentionally. Inside, the building buzzed with quiet conversations. Flyers lined the walls, legal aid, food drives, missing persons. A worn banner read, "Justice for all starts with us." Maya walked past a row of plastic chairs toward a makeshift office in the back, where an old friend was waiting. "Didn't expect to see your face again," said Reggie Carter, a local activist and community organizer with a trimmed salt and pepper beard and tired eyes that had seen too much. "Last I heard, you were handing down federal rulings in D.C. "I still am," Maya replied, "but I'm also here because something's rotting in this city." Reggie leaned forward, voice dropping. "You saw it firsthand?" Maya nodded. "Pulled over. No cause. His hand was already on his gun before I finished rolling the window down." Reggie let out a bitter laugh. "Trent Callahan. Knew it. He's like a storm cloud. Shows up and someone ends up bruised. Or worse." "I'm going to need your help," Maya said. "I want to know everything. Body cam records, internal memos, unfiled complaints." Reggie gave her a long look. "You planning to fight this from inside or outside the system?" Maya took off her sunglasses. Her eyes burned with conviction. "Both." Just then, a young woman burst through the door. Tears streamed down her face, and a small boy clung to her leg. "They took my brother," she said breathlessly. "Sheriff's office said he resisted arrest, but I was there. He was just sitting on the porch." Reggie stood. "Where?" "Thompson Street by the old church. Just an hour ago." Maya was already moving. "Let's go." By the time they arrived, a small crowd had gathered, yellow tape cordoned off the front steps of a battered home. A deputy leaned against a cruiser, arms crossed, trying to look casual but clearly on edge. Maya approached the line. "Excuse me, I'm with the family. What's the charge?" The deputy glanced at her. "Ma'am, this is an active investigation. I can't release that info." I'm sure you can, Maya said calmly. Or should I have the ACLU call your captain? The deputy's eyes narrowed. Who are you? Maya smiled tightly. Concerned citizen, one with a law degree. He scoffed and turned away, but the tension around him shifted. Whispers in the crowd grew louder. Phones recorded everything. An older man stepped out from the porch, his hands shaking. They tackled my son, broke his glasses. He wasn't doing anything. Maya took his hand. What's your son's name? Jamal Green. He just turned 17. She turned to Reggie. We need a lawyer here, today, pro bono. I got 2 on call, Reggie said. They'll be here in 20. As they waited, Maya walked the perimeter, memorizing badge numbers, observing how the officers behaved. They were nervous, defensive, and one of them kept glancing at his body cam like it might bite him. She made a mental note. Later that evening, Maya sat alone in her motel room with her laptop open and Devin on a video call. I found Jamal's intake, Devin said. You're not going to believe this. They're charging him with obstruction. Maya's jaw clenched. Because he asked why they were searching him? Exactly. No warrant, no probable cause. She leaned back. They're testing the boundaries, waiting to see how far they can push. And it's not just one bad cop, it's the whole chain. Devin nodded. So what's next? Maya pulled up a folder labeled Internal Watch List and dragged Callahan's name to the top. I go deeper. I attend their hearings. I dig into their policies, and I make them sweat. Devin hesitated. You sure about this? If your name gets out, it could backfire. Maya stared at the screen. Then let them come. I'm done hiding. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with scenes. Jamal on the ground, his sister screaming, the smirk on the deputy's face. She thought about her own brother, about how easily it could have been him. She sat up in bed, reached into her duffel, and pulled out her judge's ID. It glinted under the lamp's light. She wasn't just here to observe anymore. She was here to dismantle the system that allowed this. One case at a time, one badge at a time. It was the 3rd hearing Maya had quietly attended in 2 weeks. 3 days, 3 different young black defendants, and all somehow connected to Officer Trent Callahan. Same courtroom, same prosecutor, same outcome. Each case barely lasted 20 minutes, with charges based on vague reports, flimsy testimony, or body cam malfunction. It was a well-oiled machine, and Maya had seen this machine before, just never from the outside. Today's case was against a boy named Elijah Boone, 16, arrested for allegedly interfering with a police investigation. No drugs, no weapon, no prior record. Just a black kid on a bicycle who asked too many questions when his friend was being searched. His public defender looked exhausted before the judge even walked in. Maya sat in the back corner, hoodie up, jotting notes with a cheap blue pen on a yellow notepad. She wasn't hiding. She was watching, calculating, waiting. Elijah's mom sat 1 row ahead of her, fists clenched around a tissue, silently mouthing prayers. The judge, a portly white man named Harold Lafferty, barely glanced at the boy before slamming through procedure like he had a tea time to catch. Maya's eyes locked on Callahan as he took the stand, his uniform crisp, demeanor smug. He recited a scripted version of the arrest that completely contradicted the footage Maya had already seen through Reggie's network. According to the officer, Elijah had yelled, blocked access, and raised his hand in a threatening motion. Maya knew that hand had been reaching for a phone. The judge ruled before the defense even finished rebuttal. Elijah would remain in juvenile detention pending further review. Another name. Another soul swallowed by the system. After the gavel fell, Elijah's mom broke into sobs. Maya walked out quietly, her chest tight with fury. She had seen enough. That night, back in her rented apartment, Maya called Devin. "I need access to the department's internal complaints database." "That's restricted," Devin replied. "You'd need a federal clearance request or subpoena." Maya smirked. "Good thing I sign subpoenas." Devin exhaled. "Maya, you're walking a tightrope. One slip. I'm not slipping. I'm pushing. This town is eating its own, and I'm done pretending I can fix it from the edges." Devin paused. "I'll get you what I can." Quietly. The next day, Maya parked her car across the street from the South Fulton Police Department. She watched as officers moved in and out, laughing, sipping coffee, nodding to one another like it was just another ordinary Tuesday. But her eyes narrowed when she spotted Callahan stepping out with two other officers, one of them a sergeant she remembered from a complaint buried 2 years ago. She followed them, discreetly, into a bar 2 blocks down. Inside, the mood was loud but private. Cops leaned over drinks, talking trash, swapping arrest stories like fishermen comparing catches. Maya chose a corner booth and ordered water, phone set to record in her purse. Then she heard it. "She didn't even flinch," Callahan was saying, sipping beer. "Had that 'I'm not scared of you' look. You know the type? Always think they're smarter than you, always got something to say." "Just book 'em and move on," the sergeant replied. "Thing is," Callahan added, "there's something about her. That car was too nice, her speech too crisp. Something's off." Maya froze. "Got her name?" the other officer asked. Callahan shook his head. "Nah, didn't get the ID. Claimed she didn't have it on her. But I swear if I see her again—" Maya slid out of the booth quietly, heart pounding. They were suspicious. Her cover was thinning. She returned home and opened her laptop. In the file Reggie had given her earlier that week, there was a section labeled Ghost Cases. These were cases that never made it to court, dismissed before arraignment, paperwork disappeared, families too scared to speak. One name jumped out: Daniel Voss, 23, beaten during an arrest, hospitalized. No record of the incident filed. When Maya called the contact number listed, a woman answered. "Yes? Hi, my name is Maya. I'm with a legal support group. I'm looking into your son's arrest last year." Silence. "You shouldn't be calling," the woman said nervously. "We were told not to speak about that night." "Told by whom?" "By an officer. He came to our door the next day, said the charges would disappear if we kept quiet. He knew where my youngest went to school." Maya's stomach dropped. "Do you remember the officer's name?" "Callahan. Trent Callahan." The line went dead. Maya stared at the screen, rage crawling up her spine. This wasn't just misconduct. This was targeted silencing, intimidation, abuse of power. And now they were sniffing her out. She looked down at her duffel bag. Her judge's ID was tucked beneath her clothes, untouched since the day of the traffic stop. But she knew it wouldn't stay hidden much longer. The next morning, Maya returned to the courthouse, not in jeans and sneakers, but in a tailored navy suit and polished shoes. Her hair was pressed and wrapped into a low bun. She looked like a ghost of her past life. And when she stepped into Judge Harold Lafferty's chambers unannounced, he nearly dropped his coffee. "Can I help you?" he asked, frowning. She handed him a sealed envelope. "By order of the Federal Judicial Review Board, all cases linked to Officer Trent Callahan are now subject to formal review. You'll find the list inside." He blinked. "And you are?" She held up her ID. "I'm the one who's about to clean up your court." She turned and walked out before he could speak. Maya knew she had just lit a match in a room full of gasoline. Now she waited to see who'd burn first. The sunlight filtering through the courtroom windows was deceptive, soft, golden, almost peaceful. But inside, the tension crackled. Judge Harold Lafferty sat stone-faced at the bench, clutching the letter Maya had delivered the day before like it was a live grenade. The review board's stamp in bold red ink wasn't just a formality. It was a warning shot. And now everyone in that building knew who Maya really was. The whispers had started early. By the time she walked through the metal detectors that morning, 3 bailiffs had already called her Your Honor, with widened eyes and tight voices. Prosecutors, clerks, even other judges stopped her in the hallway, trying to mask their nervous curiosity behind polite nods. But Maya didn't stop, didn't flinch. She made her way directly to the records room. Inside, the air was dusty, thick with old files and outdated case folders. The clerk, a wiry man named Ned, who had worked there for 20 years, looked up with a startled jerk when she entered. "Judge Reynolds," he said slowly. "Just Maya today," she replied. "I need all physical case files tied to Officer Trent Callahan over the past 3 years. All of them." He blinked. That's over 100 cases. Then we better get started." For hours, Maya sat on the cold floor surrounded by cardboard boxes. Manila folders spread across the tiles like puzzle pieces. Names, dates, mugshots. Patterns began to emerge. She highlighted repeated charges: obstruction, resisting arrest, loitering. All vague, all paper thin. The same public defenders, the same prosecutors, even some of the same arrest wording, verbatim. And one thing stood out most. Every defendant was Black or Latino. Every single one. That night, she met Devin in a quiet corner of a library just off downtown. "I need to map this out," she told him, spreading a crude flowchart across the table. "Callahan isn't working alone. This is a pattern. A pipeline." Devin's eyes swept the names. Jesus. They were feeding the court system like cattle. Arrest, process, fine. Jail, repeat. Maya nodded. "And the judge, Lafferty? He rubber-stamped nearly all of them. He never questioned evidence, never recused himself, even when a conflict was obvious." Devin ran a hand down his face. "What are you going to do?" Maya looked him square in the eye. "Blow it all up, from inside." But the next morning, the battle came to her. She arrived at the courthouse to find 2 officers waiting beside the steps, Callahan and his superior, Captain Bryce Mercer. They blocked her path with smug, thin smiles. "Morning, Judge Reynolds," Mercer said, enunciating the title like it was something sour in his mouth. "We heard you've been poking around." "I've been doing my job," she said flatly. Mercer stepped closer. "See, that's the thing. You were never assigned to these cases. No docket entries, no formal notice to the clerk's office, which raises questions." "Questions," Maya repeated, "like how your officer has a 90% conviction rate on charges that rarely even hold in other districts." Callahan smirked. "Maybe I'm just that good." Maya held his gaze, cold and unwavering. "You're not. You're just that protected." Mercer's voice dropped. "Look, Judge, this isn't a game. You come at a department like ours without the department's blessing. People get nervous. Mistakes get made." Maya leaned in. "Let me be clear, I'm not asking for blessings. And if anyone makes a mistake, I'll be the one writing the report." She pushed past them. Inside her chambers, Maya found Reggie waiting. He looked more tired than usual, eyes bloodshot behind his glasses. "I've got something," he said, pulling out a flash drive. "It's not just Callahan. There's an email thread between Mercer, the city prosecutor, and, get this, Judge Lafferty." Maya sat down, heart thudding. "What's in it?" They were coordinating plea deals before arraignment, pre-written charges, quotas tied to performance bonuses, and one message from Mercer saying, and I quote, "She's digging. If Reynolds keeps at it, we'll have to find leverage." She went still. Reggie lowered his voice. "You need to be careful. They're watching you now." Maya clenched her jaw. "Then let them, because I'm not stopping." But as the sun began to set, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Reynolds," a deep voice responded. "Thought you might want to know. Your license plate's being run through our system twice in the last hour. Someone's making noise. Someone inside." Then the line went dead. Maya sat motionless for a beat, then stood and went to her drawer. She pulled out her official judicial badge, turned it over in her palm, and placed it in her purse. It was time to stop hiding behind it. If they wanted a fight, she'd give them one, but this time it wouldn't be in a courtroom. This time she'd take it to the streets, the offices, the press. Wherever justice had been strangled, she'd pry its throat open. She called Devon. "We're going public." There was a pause. Then, "I'll call the journalist I trust." Maya exhaled, "And I'll get the files." Every single one. The system that fed itself on silence had just awakened its loudest threat, and she was just getting started. The storm didn't break with thunder. It began with a leak. At exactly 6:47 a.m., the city's largest independent news outlet, The Beacon, published a bombshell report. The headline was brutal in its clarity. "Internal court emails reveal racial bias and collusion in dozens of cases." Maya's name appeared only once in the article, credited anonymously as a judicial source, but everyone in the courthouse knew exactly where the leak came from. By 9 a.m., all hell had broken loose. Phones rang off the hook in every department. Reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, shoving cameras in the faces of clerks, defense attorneys, and even janitors. Protesters gathered outside the building's iron gates, chanting names of the victims caught in the web of injustice. Signs reading, "We want justice," "Who's protecting us?" and "This court is compromised," waved above the crowd like fire. Inside her chambers, Maya paced like a caged lion. Reggie sat at her desk, laptop open, scanning reaction updates. "They've launched a formal investigation. The city's Judicial Ethics Committee wants all digital communications from the last 3 years, and Mercer's been put on administrative leave pending review." Maya stopped. "Just Mercer?" "For now. But Lafferty's name is trending, not in a good way." She exhaled slowly, the tension in her chest barely easing. "This isn't over." At that moment, her office door opened, and Devon walked in with someone behind him. "This is Aisha Collins," Devon said. "She's with the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division." Maya shook her hand. Aisha's grip was firm, her expression dead serious. "We've been monitoring patterns in your district for a while," Aisha said. "Your leak confirmed more than we expected. We're formally opening a federal inquiry." Maya blinked. "You were already watching?" Aisha nodded. "We suspected, but without an insider like you, we couldn't touch it." Maya folded her arms. "So now what?" Aisha said. "Now you wear a wire." Silence. Devon flinched. "Wait, what?" Aisha's eyes never left Maya's. "We need more. That email thread was damning, but it's not enough to indict a sitting judge and a police captain with deep political ties. We need direct conversations, real-time pressure. You're the only one they still trust, or fear enough to talk to." Maya hesitated. "I thought I already burned that bridge." "They think you're scared. We want them to think that." Reggie chimed in, concern etched across his face. "Maya, this is dangerous. You're not an agent." "No," she said, voice low, "but I am a judge." And it's about time they saw what that really means. The plan was laid out in tight detail. That afternoon, Maya was to meet with Judge Lafferty under the guise of calming the growing media storm. She would wear a discreet recording device, a brooch with embedded audio. Devin, Reggie, and an undercover DOJ agent would be stationed in a cafe across the street, monitoring everything. When Maya entered Lafferty's office, the air was already thick with paranoia. He didn't look up. "I assume you've seen the news." "Yes," she said, sitting, "and I assume you know how bad this could get." His eyes flicked to her, narrowed and angry. "Why are you really here?" "To fix this," she said, "for all of us." Lafferty barked a dry laugh. "You think this can be fixed? Maya, do you know how long I've kept this machine running? Mercer, Callahan, hell, half the prosecutors owe me favors. Then you know it won't stop with one article." He leaned forward. "Unless we stop it ourselves." Now, Maya's heart pounded. "Walk away," he said. "Recuse yourself quietly. Say you acted emotionally. Public sympathy will fade. You'll still have your seat, and I'll make sure Mercer never touches you." Maya swallowed, every inch of her body screaming at the lie she was about to deliver. "Okay," she said softly, "but I want protection. I want guarantees." Lafferty smiled, an oily, satisfied grin. "Now you're thinking like a survivor." The moment she stepped outside his office, she locked eyes with Devin across the street. He gave her the subtlest of nods. They had it. But the next twist came faster than they expected. That night, Reggie's car was broken into, files gone, laptop smashed. Devin's phone was cloned. Maya received a text from an unknown number. "You think you're safe behind that badge? You're just another piece on the board." She didn't sleep. Instead, she sat in her living room sipping cold coffee and staring out the window. The city lights glimmered like false hope. Then her phone buzzed again, this time from Aisha. "They know you're cooperating, and we think there's someone leaking from inside the DOJ." Maya closed her eyes, her breath shallow. "Do you want to back out?" Aisha asked. Maya's voice was steel. "No, I want to go deeper." This was no longer just about a corrupt cop or a crooked judge. This was about a system that believed it could silence her, and Maya Reynolds had no intention of being silent. Not now. Not ever. The courthouse was quieter than usual that morning, as if the building itself held its breath. Judge Maya Reynolds stood in her chambers, staring at her reflection in the glass pane of her window. She adjusted her robe, straightened her collar, and took one last look at the brooch Aisha had returned to her, the same discreet device that had recorded Lafferty's damning words. Today wasn't just another hearing. It was the culmination of everything she had risked: her safety, her reputation, her seat on the bench. But more than that, it was justice knocking on the door louder than ever before. Reggie stood beside her, reading the latest briefing from the DOJ. "The federal task force is positioned. Mercer and Lafferty are both scheduled to appear in courtroom 3A at 11 o'clock a.m. The judge assigned to the oversight hearing? Replaced. DOJ's bringing in a federal magistrate." Maya's eyes narrowed. "And they're unaware." "For now," Reggie said, "but someone's been sniffing around. I saw Mercer talking to the court clerk, looked tense. If they make a move, it'll be today." "Then let them." At 10:57 a.m., Maya entered courtroom 3A through the side door. She wasn't scheduled to preside today, but she wasn't here to judge. She was here to watch. Devin sat in the gallery, flanked by two plainclothes DOJ agents. Aisha stood near the rear exit, earbuds in, monitoring the live feed from the surveillance van outside. Mercer entered first, his uniform crisp, posture rigid. He nodded curtly at Lafferty, who followed a minute later, a sheen of sweat already collecting at his temples. They took their seats at the defense table, still unaware they were the ones under review. Then came the twist. The presiding magistrate didn't walk in. Instead, Maya did. The murmurs in the gallery were instant, sharp, confused. What is she doing here? Isn't she the one who... Wait, is she taking over? Maya stepped up to the bench, not as a presiding judge, but as a witness. I'm here at the request of the Department of Justice, she announced, to testify to the systemic abuse of power within this court and the city's law enforcement. Lafferty shot up. This is a mockery. She's not impartial. She's a disgruntled employee with a vendetta. Sit down, Judge Lafferty, said a voice at the door. All heads turned. Aisha entered with a federal badge raised high. The Department of Justice is assuming control of this courtroom. Effective immediately, Judge Reynolds will testify as a primary witness in an ongoing criminal investigation. Maya walked to the witness stand. The air was so thick with tension you could have sliced it with a gavel. Lafferty leaned toward Mercer, whispering, "This is a setup." Mercer grunted. "Then we hit back, now." Without warning, Mercer stood and stormed toward the bench. "This entire proceeding is illegitimate. That woman," he said, pointing at Maya, "has violated more ethical boundaries than anyone in this courtroom." But his voice faltered as two federal marshals approached from either side. "Captain Mercer," one said calmly, "you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, falsifying evidence, and conspiracy to pervert the course of law." "What?" Mercer backed up, blinking. "You can't be serious." The other marshal read from a few. "We have sworn affidavits, audio recordings, witness testimony. You've been under federal investigation for months." The cuffs clicked loud. Gasps filled the room. Lafferty stood too, stumbling. "You can't arrest him. You have no—" Aisha turned to him. "We have more than enough. And don't worry, Judge. You're next." Maya didn't flinch. She just stared straight ahead, calm but burning inside. "You both thought the robe and badge made you untouchable," she said quietly. "But justice isn't about who wears the robe. It's about who lives by it." Lafferty turned to her, face pale. "You did this. You destroyed the court." "No," Maya replied, rising from the stand. "I saved it." Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered again. Protesters and supporters stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes fixed on the front steps. When Mercer and Lafferty were escorted out in cuffs, silence spread across the crowd, then erupted into applause. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, questions flying. "Judge Reynolds, do you believe the system can still work? Is this the beginning of a larger reform? What happens next?" Maya didn't answer right away. She just looked at the sea of faces, some hopeful, some angry, some still unsure, and nodded. Then she turned to the mic. "We've witnessed a crack in the system," she said, and through that crack, truth poured in. "But this is just the beginning. Real justice doesn't end with an arrest. It begins with accountability. It begins with change." The crowd roared. But inside her, Maya knew the real test was yet to come, because cleaning up a broken court was one thing. Fixing the roots of injustice, that would take everything. The courthouse stood bathed in soft morning light, its marble columns glowing gold beneath the rising sun. Maya Reynolds stood at the base of those steps, eyes fixed on the place where her career had nearly ended, and where it was now being reborn. She wasn't here in a robe, not yet. She wore a navy blue suit, crisp white blouse, and simple silver earrings. But the look in her eyes was different now, steadier, sharper. She hadn't just survived corruption, she'd exposed it. Inside, the courtroom still bore the scars of that exposure. The gavel that had once banged out injustice was gone. The nameplate that had read Judge Mercer had been ripped from the bench. In its place, a small table held a new plaque. Brushed steel, clean lettering. Honorary Maya Reynolds. The vote had been unanimous. reinstated with full honors. The Oversight Board, the Bar Association, even the governor had issued formal apologies. But Maya hadn't returned for an apology. She'd returned because the system wasn't going to fix itself, and she'd be damned if she watched more lives get swallowed by it. Reggie appeared in the gallery, holding up a folded copy of the Washington Post with a grin. "They gave you the front page," he said, "and you didn't even have to get arrested this time." She smirked and took it. The headline read, "Justice Reclaimed. Black Woman Exposes Legal Corruption from the Inside." "They got your good side," Reggie added. Maya shook her head. "They got the story. That's what matters." A knock at the chamber door interrupted them. Aisha stepped in, her expression unreadable, but her posture brimming with restrained energy. She held out a sealed envelope. "From the DOJ," she said. "It's official. They're forming a statewide civil rights review task force. They want you to help lead it." Maya opened the envelope carefully, her eyes scanning the printed words with caution, then with a growing fire. "They want me to help rebuild the system they let fall apart," she said, half to herself. Aisha shrugged. "Sometimes it takes someone who's been burned to rebuild the firehouse." Maya exhaled slowly. "No, I'm not just consulting. I'll lead it. But we start with Mercer's cases, every one he touched, then Lafferty's, then we widen the net." "And the innocent people still sitting in prison because of them?" Reggie asked softly. Maya's voice was iron. "We get them out, every single one." They stood there in the quiet chamber, the weight of the task sinking in. Outside, murmurs grew louder. A crowd had gathered again, but this time it wasn't in protest. It was celebration. As Maya stepped out the door, a wave of applause surged forward. Signs waved in the air. "Thank you, Judge Reynolds. Truth matters. Justice is black, bold, and back." Reporters closed in with cameras and microphones, shouting her name, asking for quotes. She raised her hand, not to quiet them, but to ground herself. Her voice was steady, no notes needed. What happened in this courtroom wasn't just about one corrupt cop or one racist judge, she said, eyes sweeping across the crowd. It was about a system that protected them, that punished whistleblowers and buried the truth. But that system underestimated us, because we are not afraid. We are watching, we are speaking, and we are not going away. A hush fell, and then from the front of the crowd a small voice rose. "I want to be a judge like you." The crowd turned. A little black girl, maybe 10 years old, held up a hand-painted sign. Her curls bounced in the sunlight, and her face was lit with pure, unfiltered hope. Maya stepped down from the marble landing and knelt beside the girl. "You don't have to wait till you're grown," she said gently. "Speak up now. Ask questions. Stand up for others. Being a judge isn't about a robe. It's about justice." The girl nodded, eyes wide. Behind them, a reporter's voice broke through the moment. "Judge Reynolds, are you running for office?" Maya stood, laughing. "Not today." Then, after a pause, she added, "But tomorrow, who knows?" Back inside the courthouse, she found herself alone in her chambers again, staring at the desk where she'd once wrestled with whether to stay silent or risk everything. That desk had nearly become her undoing. Now it would become her command center. She sat down and pulled out a yellow legal pad. On the top, she wrote, "Day 1, the rebuild." Below that, she listed the names of defendants still imprisoned under Mercer's rulings. Dozens, maybe more. She circled the first 3. Reggie would start background checks. Aisha would cross-reference parole files. Maya would call the DOJ directly. The knock on the door this time was from the janitor, an older black man who had seen it all. "Judge," he said with a smile, tipping his cap. "Glad you're back, Place didn't feel right without you, she smiled softly. It didn't feel right with me until now. He handed her a box. They wanted to throw this out, thought maybe you'd want it. She opened the lid and gasped. Inside was her old gavel, broken, burned slightly along the handle, but intact. She held it for a long moment, then set it down beside her new nameplate. "No more silencing," she whispered. "Only truth." As she looked out the chamber window, the sun was high now. Light poured in, not just through the glass, but through every crack injustice had once slipped through. That light would hurt some eyes. It would expose secrets, but it was necessary, because the battle wasn't over. There were more names to clear, more lies to uncover, more power to challenge. But today, justice had a name, and it was Maya Reynolds. If Maya's story lit something in you, if it reminded you of what truth looks like or what courage demands, don't keep it to yourself. Hit like. Subscribe for more stories that speak power to truth. Share it with someone who's still fighting. And in the comments, tell us, what does justice mean to you? This isn't just fiction. It's a mirror, and you are part of the change.